Hi guys, welcome to the S Factor. For the ones that are new here, my name is Somanji, and today we are going to talk about the dark night of the soul. So, what is the dark night of the soul? It's pretty much a period of intense isolation, confusion, helplessness, and pretty much you're going through a rebirth. But it comes with a lot. So, I didn't know how common it was until I did my research, and when I found out was when I was already in it. And this is my story. So let's start from the beginning. When it first hit me, or let's say when I first started this journey, it all happened after my father passed away. That was the beginning of my rebirth. After my father passed away, it took me a few months to mourn him properly because I had a lot going on after that happened. I didn't really have like a lot of control of what was happening, if that makes any sense. Everything started happening when I had time to unwind, when I had time to myself, when I had time to sit down, because I was really busy for a few months. It was like a lot going on. And that's when everything hit me. So let's get into it. So when I finally had time to just unwind and everything was already like settled, that's when I started becoming really angry. I had a lot of time on my hands to think. Like, I just had my space to think, if that makes sense. And I became extremely angry. That's when everything hit me at once. And that's when I started to mourn my father. I was angry on a consistent basis. It was like so much pressure. I felt like a lot of pressure on my head. Like, I felt like I had a headache every single day. I literally felt so much tension on my forehead. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It felt like I had something like compressing my head like on a consistent basis. Like, that's literally how I felt every single day. And there was times like that I wouldn't think nothing of it. I'll just be like, oh, like, this is gonna pass. Then I realized days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and next thing you know, I'm angry on a consistent basis. It came to a point where I would ask my friend, and I'm like, yo, are you angry? Because I feel like I'm angry every single day. Like, I was trying to understand what was happening to me because I didn't even realize what was happening to me. So long story short, now I'm transitioning into the rejection phase. So this is how it happened for me. So in my journey, I started to reject and I started to get rejected. That's how it happened for me. That's when I noticed that everything started changing in my world, if that makes any sense. I became so angry. I started pushing multiple people away, but there was also people that were pushing me away as well. And I couldn't understand like what was happening. So as months continue to pass by, I still feel a lot of pressure. I still feel angry. I felt like I couldn't get over my anger. Like, it was that intense. Like, I felt like it was like normal because it was every single day and it was for an extensive period of time. So after a few months of me pretty much like being angry and things like that, I started finding myself in isolation. Pretty much it came to the point where I couldn't be around anyone and no one could be around me. Pretty much I was so pissed all the time. Like, that's like the highlight of my journey because it was, I didn't even know what came to a point where I couldn't even figure out like why was I so upset and things like that. Like, it was like that intense. So then the isolation phase began. I started finding myself like isolating myself, or people like, like pretty much like not trying to be around me. There was also times like even if I was angry, I'll try to like fight against it. I'll try to like, be around others, go outside, try to socialize, be happy. And I realized I was always finding myself like isolated. Like, it felt like I wasn't ready like to be around others, because that's also a part of the process. When you find yourself being constantly rejected, it's not necessarily that is you on a consistent basis. It's also you're not ready to be around others, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like this transition is so intense that it literally like forces you, or certain things happen in your life for you to be in isolation. Like there's certain things like that you need to understand, or you need to face, or you need to like reflect on. And for me, I did find myself in those kind of situations. Like I noticed that I would try to force myself out of isolation, and the rejection was on a consistent basis because I was meant to still be to myself, and that's okay. So after isolation, it's hermit mode. And it's pretty much when you're not going outside. It was kind of like the old person that I was before this journey was completely gone. I felt like it was so hard for me to get back to that person. It was so hard for me to be that girl again. It was hard. Like, it was really hard. And I just had to accept that whatever was happening to me, there was nothing that I could do. It was like a constant, like, unexpected ending, one after the other. And then another thing, I felt like, maybe this is only gonna last like a few months or something like that, and I'm gonna get over it. Like, I was still optimistic. I was still optimistic during this, and I'm like, oh yeah, like maybe it's gonna, maybe, you know, I'm gonna be done with this, maybe just like a few months or something like that, or like this is just a moment, this is just a phase. And then I started realizing, no, this is actually not gonna change. And that's when I had to embrace what was happening to me. So I was also very vocal. I'm the type of person that if I feel confused or if I don't know something, I would ask. And I would ask questions, and I couldn't find any answers because the way that I was feeling, I felt like I didn't know like how to talk about it, pretty much. And I was so confused because I didn't even know what was happening to me. I really felt like my whole world was coming down. It was like my life literally took a 180 in the midst of like being in isolation and hermit mode. When you're in the dark night of the soul, you're not necessarily by yourself. That's another thing. It's not complete isolation. It is isolation in the beginning, but then you have new characters in your life. Everybody has a different experience. From my experience, it was literally like the movie that I've known, the movie that I've been in, the character that I've been playing my entire life is done, is fired, and now I'm literally starting a completely new movie. It was literally like that in the middle of like rejection and isolation. It was like I was starting over and I had new characters in my life. That's literally what happened in the midst of feeling confused, feeling lost, not understanding what was happening to me. But God, I would like to say God because that's the universe to me, but of course you can say, you know, I'm gonna say God for me, okay? But I felt like God didn't leave me completely alone. It was like he was placing characters in my life, shaping my path to where I was heading or who I was meant to become. God didn't leave me in complete isolation. He put new faces in my path and new characters in my life. But I still felt alone and isolated in the beginning. Why? Because it's kind of like if you're completely starting over. I felt like I was starting over in my life in the midst of being depressed. And also while I was like angry and confused and trying to figure out what is going on in my life, I was literally starting over as well. I was starting over in every area of my life that you could think of. So in the midst of hermit mode, of course, you start to reflect, you start to find yourself, you start to understand what you like, what you don't like. You start to heal past traumas as well. You start to get rid of a lot of things that you didn't really notice that were bothering you or were restricting you from like moving forward or from having like a more fulfilling life and things like that. And pretty much those new characters that were placed in your life in the midst of that happening were a part of this movie, the second part of the movie. So pretty much Now that you're starting a brand new movie, those new faces are also they're also a part of this new movie in your life, if that makes any sense. So in the midst of hermit mode, I also felt like I wasn't alone, but I also felt comfortable being in my solitude, if that makes any sense. I came from like never being alone ever, constantly being with someone, to completely like enjoying my own company, getting to know me, understanding myself, facing myself as well. And I feel like hermit mode is healthy. Some people are like, oh no, hermit mode. I think hermit mode is great to an extent. Yes, to an extent, I feel like hermit mode is good. It's good to, like, reflect, get to know yourself, have time for yourself, figure out what you like, what you don't like, etc. Hold on, y'all. Let's let the bus pass by. So, in the midst of being in hermit mode, I felt like I had to be in hermit mode, but I also learned how to embrace it, and I learned how to work with it. The dark night of the soul, for me, it was very intense. It was very transformative, and it was also very painful. But I also had a lot of good things happen to me, if that makes any sense. But it came in ways that I would have never thought. I didn't realize that this would ever happen to me. Literally, like, it was definitely something that hit me like a wrecking ball. It was something that came out of nowhere. And in the midst of my confusion, I was trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with me, what is going on with me, why is this happening to me, why I can't like connect with others, like what's going on. And I had to YouTube and I did my research, and that's when I put two and two together, and I found out that this is actually very common. This is a common thing, and it just so happened to happen to me during this time. They usually say that you go through this during like the ages of 28 and 31. Some people go it through like earlier times, and some people go it like when they're older. Sorry y'all, my accent. After hermit mode, the next phase is the healing phase. The healing phase is when you're finally getting over certain things that happen before the dark night of the soul and during the dark night of the soul. So like I said, it was also beneficial. It was definitely unexpected, unwanted, and painful, but it was definitely something that was beneficial, something that I would have never thought would happen to me. Like, that's the highlight of this, because I would have never thought that something like this would happen to me. I felt like this would never happen to me. Like, I don't even know how to explain that, but everything's meant to happen for a reason. I also noticed that I'm not the only one, or I wasn't the only one, that was experiencing something like this. I noticed that there was a lot of people that was going through the same thing as I did my research, and I started asking questions and things like that. And it kind of did make me feel better, and it also made me want to help others, because I felt so alone. Like, I felt like I couldn't figure out what the hell was happening to me. But luckily, I wasn't entirely alone. No, I definitely did have a lot of people that supported me and were there for me within my transition. But like I said, it's a rebirth. So my entire old world was completely over as I started this new movie, and I'm in my new movie pretty much. And all I gotta say is the dark night of the soul is no joke, but it's definitely beneficial. Like, I started watching Andrew Tate on YouTube, and he did say that pain builds character, and I agree 100%. I feel like pain is a very valuable lesson, and is needed, and it's okay to embrace it. And I just wanted to say my story, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that could probably be going through the same thing, have experienced it, or might experience it, and maybe you could be ready because I wasn't, and I wish I was. And just so you know, you're not alone. Good luck.